I'm sitting in the front seat of a 6-seater private plane, and we're flying at low altitude, a couple thousand feet over the Utah desert. I can see snow on the ground and on the trees, and then the ground just falls away, and it's this massive, huge, you could say Grand Canyon that we flew over. And at the bottom of this canyon is a teeny little ribbon of the Colorado River. And this was something that I never thought I would get to experience. This is my first time seeing the Grand Canyon, and how it came to pass is pretty unexpected, and we want to share that with you today. Welcome to the What Could Go Right podcast. We are your hosts, Erik, Orton.
And I'm Emily Orton.
And here we talk about personal growth and sailing. In 2014, we moved aboard a fixer-upper sailboat and bootstrapped a year sailing with our 5 kids, and it changed our lives forever.
We tell the whole story in our memoir, our book, 7 at Sea. On this podcast, we want to help you go from fear to freedom, one adventure at a time. So you may be surprised to hear that as a rock climber and an avid mountain lover, that Erik had never been to the Grand Canyon. I took the kids once a few years ago, and he wasn't with us on that trip, and so he didn't see it, and we didn't get much of a peek either. One vista. We were in the park for like 30 minutes. But when Erik came home from the sailing trip to Italy, one of the
Bahamas.
Oh, I don't know why I just said that. You're right. Yeah, it was the Bahamas, the watercolor trip, private trip. So cool. Anyway, one of the guests on that trip extended an invitation to go flying, and maybe you can tell about it.
Yeah, so as we're on this trip, I get to know everybody on the trips, and that's one of my favorite parts. And this is a guy who hopefully we'll have him in our podcast, and if so, then we'll out him then. We'll say his name then. But for now,
okay.
we'll just call him Curtis.
Okay.
Because that's his name.
Okay.
So Curtis is he's had his pilot's license since he was 17. He worked in the aviation industry for decades. And then at a certain point, he was in a position to just buy a private plane. One of his favorite things to do is fly. And so he said, hey, if you ever want to go on a day trip, I could fly you down to see the Grand Canyon. We could fly down, stop in the Grand Canyon, tour around, grab lunch, and then fly home. I'm thinking, that sounds like the coolest way to see the Grand Canyon ever. And then what I loved is that his wife said, please take him up on it. He loves to do this. And I was like, okay, I probably would have taken him up on it anyway, but the fact that she really emphasized how much he loves to do this gave me a lot of confidence. And so we'd been home for a few months, and I had never circled back with him. And then we're getting into the holidays, and I was like, Emily and I have been trying to do more date nights. And I thought, this would be a pretty epic date. It wouldn't be at night. We'd go during the days.
Sure, a date.
But yeah, I wanted to go. I wanted to see the Grand Canyon when the sun was up. That's one of my main criteria.
Visibility.
And so I messaged Curtis, and I was like, hey, I can, I basically, hey, you made this offer. Is this something I could take you up on? And he's like, oh, that would be great. Tell me. He says, I'm in New York, because he had actually flown across country in his plane to see one of their kids. But he's like, I'll be back, and I'll look for a good weather window. And so within 72 hours, he's like, hey, this is a good day. Can we go meet in the morning? We'll fly down, do lunch, circle back. We'll come back that day. And we had our daughter flying in for Christmas that afternoon, but I was like, I think we can make it happen. And we squeezed it in. Anyway, I don't want to just keep going on and on. I don't know if you have anything you want to jump in on.
One of the things I want to say here is just that his wife had to jump in and say, really do take him up on this. He actually loves doing this. And I think it's possible that a lot of times when people make an offer, the person they are extending the invitation to feel like it will actually be too much of a burden to accept it, and will be more inclined to say no. What might be some of the reasons that people would say no? I have to kind of run through this because we're not those people. We're the other kind.
Well, here's an offer that I make that I have yet to have somebody take me up on.
Okay, let's hear it.
We live very close to downtown Salt Lake. we're within a mile of Temple Square, which is like the very center of Salt Lake. And so if you're in Utah or passing on through on a road trip or something like that, we're 10 minutes off the road. We're very close. And I say to people all the time, if you're ever passing through town, just swing by and just come say hi, give us a hug. We'll give you a hug. You don't have to stay for lunch. You don't have to stay for a visit. It'd just be great to see you for 5 or 10 minutes. And I think the only people that I've had take us up on this was when I had my friend Jose come through. He was in Utah from Chile. He'd come from South America, and I insisted that he come over with his family members that he was traveling with. And so they did.
That was so fun.
And we didn't have a meal. We just sat in the living room and talked for a few minutes, and we gave them a hug and they gave us a hug, and they kept going. But they're the only ones. And so I think some people feel like maybe you're not serious. You're just being polite.
Mm.
Maybe that's what it is. That you're just being polite. And yet, if I've said that to you, I would love to have you show up on our doorstep. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say if I didn't mean it.
There you go. But I think a lot of times people might make an invitation and the other party might feel that it's too much. It's too much of a burden for them to do that, or it feels like for whatever reason, they're just unwilling to receive that gift that's being offered. And we like to say yes when we can. And so I know you came home and told me about this offer, and I just thought that sounds like the coolest thing. I would love to fly over the Grand Canyon, in addition to my 30-minute peak in 2017 or whenever it was. And so I really appreciated you extending the invitation to me as well. And it was super fun. On the way out, you rode in the co-pilot seat, and on the way back, I rode in the co-pilot seat. And it wasn't just the Grand Canyon, as epic as that was. It was also other national parks. And
yeah, we saw Bryce Canyon. We saw Zion from a distance. We flew over Lake Powell.
Yeah, Lake Powell blew my mind. I had no idea it was like that. A river system.
Can we talk about what the rest of the trip, just for those?
Let's tell about so anyway, here at the beginning, I just want to say, don't extend invitations if you don't mean it. And then when people extend
at least to us.
Yeah, right. Especially to us, because we will show up to stay in your basement when we're passing through Nebraska or whatever you're offering. But when people are extending an invitation, why not receive it? Why not say yes? Why not let them give what they are trying to share? Okay, let's hear this.
I'm going to go biblical here for a quick second.
Okay. I love it.
I don't have the Bible in front of me, but I know that there's the verse that says, God in heaven, our Heavenly Father, only gives good gifts. But then he goes on to say that basically, we have to receive it. If we don't receive the gift, then the giver cannot rejoice in giving it. And so I just think especially on the heels of Christmas, if you gave a gift to anybody and they didn't receive it, that's a lot less fun for you. But if you give a gift and somebody's like, whoa, thank you, this is totally unexpected, I love it, and
they put it on, or they start doing it, or
when somebody receives your gift, they get joy. And so if somebody has offered you a gift or something generous, receive it, because you're going to make them happy. You're doing them a solid one. You're doing,
yeah.
Anyway, that's it. That's the end of my.
I like it. Okay, so here's how the journey unfolded. We got up pretty early. We had to set up somebody else to help our daughter get on the bus for school that morning, and we got down to the little airport, and there was the plane just waiting for our arrival.
I love the security at this airport. We pull into this little teeny parking lot. There's no check-in. There's no security guard. We get to the parking lot, and then there's a chain link fence, and there's a space where there would be a door, but there's nothing. And you walk through this door where a gate might be, and you're
in.
Now you're in.
I think there was a poster saying there's gonna be some more security coming.
Yeah, there's gonna be like a key code thing in the future. But for now, it's where a chain link fence door would have been. And we went inside, and there was a little building with a door or two, and there were two bathrooms inside and a little glass, like a fake leather couch to sit on, and a poster about flying. And that was like the whole extent of the
The lobby.
accommodations.
Yeah.
And then our friend was just there. Curtis was there getting his plane ready, and it's a beautiful
Mm.
plane. And I got to sit in the cockpit, and when we were sailing, we were talking tons about the similarities between boat navigation systems and plane navigation systems. And I think we should maybe give a quick background on us. We have taken a private flying lesson before once when we were in New York. We flew from Long Island over to Connecticut and
Hmm.
back as a private flying lesson. That was kind of a birthday present to ourselves.
Yeah, it was also a New Year's. It was kind of, we like to do it, something we haven't done before every year. And this year, that particular year, we did it in March because we wanted to take a flying lesson, and it
Yeah,
was really awesome. But I thought you were a pretty good pilot,
thank you.
and I had a great time when you were flying. But when I was flying, you were actually trying to keep the plane steady in four directions. I didn't do such a good job, and the pilot kept like steering with his knees or holding the bottom up. He was supposed to be letting me steer, but he was trying to like sneakily keep steering because I did such a bad job. And poor Eric at the end of it all just had to like throw up because I was so wobbly. But as soon as that was over, you're like, that was awesome.
I should. This is a story worth telling. I think
Okay.
I didn't want to. There's nowhere to go in this plane. I'm just like, it's a super teeny little plane, and my knees are like all pushed in. I'm in the back, and I throw up in my mouth.
Yeah.
That's the only place to keep it. So, and I just kind of, I was like, there's no there's no bag like on the airlines. There's nothing. So I just kind of like hold it in my mouth for the till we get down, and then I once we land, I get out and I walk off the tarmac and spit into the grass, and then I can say that was awesome.
Well, on this trip to the Grand Canyon, I brought Ziploc bags just in case.
This is a sequel to our episode called "Do Your Dreams Make You
Yeah,
Puke?"
do your dreams make you puke? Yes. Sailing definitely made us nauseous, and flying as well, especially when I'm the one flying. So this was awesome because we had a very experienced pilot doing all of the flying, and the Ziploc bags were never needed. And so I think we can just pick it up from there. So we're over the Grand Canyon.
So I'll say this: I'm going to share a few things, but the reason I want to share them is because this trip expanded my mind to think about. It made me think about more things being possible than I had perceived or knew beforehand. And I'll give a couple of examples. So first of all, we fly there, we go over the Grand Canyon. It's amazing. We'll throw in some pictures or something maybe. But then we land and we're there. And we call a cab, and the cab picks us up at the airport, and while we're gone, they're going to refuel the plane because it's a small plane, and we'll need some fuel to get back. We take a cab into the park, and we're there. We get to walk around on foot. We get to see it. We enjoy. It's amazing to see it from above in an airplane, and it's also amazing to see it standing on the rim, looking across, seeing the Grand Canyon, going into all the museums and the visitor centers and learning about everything. And then we go grab a bite to eat, get some lunch.
Burritos.
So, yeah,
So
the
unexpected to have like a hot burrito with green chilies and sour cream while we're sitting there.
delicious burrito wrap.
Hmm.
And then we get in the plane and we fly back home. And again, we go back over Lake Powell and we do a loop around Mountain Timpanogos. For those of you that know Utah, it's one of the largest mountains along the Wasatch Front. And the sun is getting low in the sky, so it's golden hour, and it's just incredible. And Curtis is pointing out all kinds of different things, both about what we're seeing as well as what's inside the plane. And the plane's really comfortable. And one of the stories that I love that he told is he had a son moving across country with his family. They were coming from somewhere in the Midwest towards Utah. And the wife was really pregnant. And so she'd flown ahead. And he was doing the move with the kids. And it was going okay, but it wasn't going great. And they had been in the Midwest as well and said, hey, you know what? We're nearby. What if we just land the plane somewhere near I-80. I'm assuming they were traveling on I-80. And we'll pick up the grandkids and they'll fly home with us so that you can do the rest of the move in peace with no kids in the car. It'll just be easier and we'll get to hang out with them. And so that's what they did. They just, as they were flying, they said, we're going to be close to where are you? We're going to be close to this airport, small regional local airport. They land, the kids get in the back, and grandma and grandpa take off again with the grandkids, and their son just keeps going with the stuff. And funnily enough, the grandkids got queasy on the flight and puked all over the back of their plane, but that was their problem. And the dad just got to peacefully drive down I-80 with their stuff. And that's just the kind of thing that I never would have thought possible. Really cool, really fun.
Right. It's almost like being a fairy godmother. You're just going to I'll just pop in, remove this element, which, grandparents love to see their grandkids. So it's a benefit to everybody. And then I can make your life easier, win-win for everybody. It's so cool if you have that capacity.
And then I think you asked Curtis a great question, which was like, where do you like to fly to?
Yeah, I said, since you could go anywhere, anytime, where do you like to go? He said, mostly visit my kids.
Which is a great destination.
It's a great destination.
Yeah. And so, you can debate the economics of whether it's valuable to have a plane or not, because they're expensive to fuel and maintain and all that. But he just loves this. He loves to fly and he's good at it. And he's been flying his whole life.
I just remember sitting up there with him and we both had headphones on, we could hear each other and talk. And he just kept expressing his amazement and deep gratitude and humility at the view that we had and the ability that we had to see things from this perspective. And he, sometimes I might get a little chatty and he would kind of say, wait, I don't want you to miss this. He's like pointing out things, and he said, I can do this by myself and I do it by myself, but it is so much more satisfying when there's someone else here that I can share it with. And even though we're not in his family and, we haven't known them for very long, it's just what a delight to be able to say, look at Lake Powell from this angle. Oh, look at there's Bryce Canyon. Oh, can you see? It was so delightful. It was enjoyable for me having the guide, and it was so fun for him to do it. And it really did increase his appreciation and his gratitude for the experience, just being able to share it. And then maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but on the way back, he said, I know your daughter's flying in. Do you have time to circle around Mount Timpanogos? And I said, oh, yeah. We don't want to be all the way up here and then not circle around Mount Timpanogos, which I hiked not this most recent summer, but the summer before. And it was, many, many hours. I think we did it in like 11 hours. And it was glorious to see it up close. But now to then circle around it was so awesome. And I know you've camped up there and hiked up there. And it really did feel like something that was humbling in a peaceful, grateful way to just say, wow, this is the world that we live in. And it's, at least the parts we're looking at today are so beautiful and so inspiring and make me feel really grateful.
Yeah, it's true. It was a perfect finale because, again, it was golden hour. The sun was going down and you could just see not only the mountain from above, which how rare, I fly into Salt Lake regularly and I see it from a 747, but to just be like that close, to be above, but to be that close was really special. And then you get to see all the mountains around it. And so it was really spectacular. And we'll have to share some of our pictures from this trip on social media. But it was really just a beautiful thing. And we did land and we were late. Our daughter got picked up by one of our kids because we were not back in time. She totally understood. And she said, I would have done the same thing.
I think she made dinner for us instead of the other way around. I felt a little guilty, but I called it. Eric was like, just call. And I called and they're like, no, it's great. We're happy for you. This is awesome. So then I let go of the guilt.
Cool. And so we're hoping to have Curtis and his wife on our podcast because I think the story of how they came to buy this plane and everything that led up to it is a really fascinating story. And that's another part of it that I want to save for another conversation, but just consider it a teaser if we ever get those guys here on the podcast.
Yeah. And I guess I would just ask two questions here for our listeners. What holds you back from saying yes to unexpected opportunities? And then how do you cultivate gratitude for both big and small moments in your life? And I want to tell one story that is somewhat unrelated, but it did happen in southern Utah. We were visiting a friend, and this woman, we just love to be around her because she is easily delighted. I personally think that is the secret to eternal youth, is a willingness to be delighted, to not be jaded, to not be bitter, but to be willing to be delighted. And I remember we were visiting them. They were some people who had offered, "Hey, if you're down this way, you can stay with us." So we did. So we did. And I remember coming home one day after climbing, and she was showing me these pictures of just a really microscopic close up look at grains of sand. And it was just like a little handful of sand that had been picked up in one spot. But each grain was a completely different color when you could see it up close. And she was in awe of just how beautiful each grain of sand was. And I just remember being so impressed and thinking, I want to grow old this way. I want to grow young this way, right? I want to grow more and more delighted, more and more impressed with the world around me and the people around me rather than the opposite. And I felt like we had an opportunity to have that experience from a macro level flying over the Grand Canyon as well. Anyway.
Can we talk about one other concept before we wrap up this episode?
Oh, yeah,
This idea of who, not how.
for sure.
What's the best way to get into this one?
Well, we've talked about this before in previous episodes, who, not how, and it's a pretty simple concept, but it can feel a little hard to get around. I think this is a really good example of it because this was something that we could do on our own. It would take so much effort and so much energy and
Time,
so many time,
money,
so much resource to get ourselves in a position where we could fly ourselves over the Grand Canyon and provide that this kind of opportunity for ourselves. But instead, through using the talents and the gifts and the skills that we've already cultivated, both in sailing and just in cultivating relationship, you were able to make a connection that resulted in an invitation that allowed us to have this kind of experience in collaboration with somebody else's delight and love and joy and cultivation of skill.
It's a really special opportunity to drop in on somebody else's area of expertise and let them shine.
Mm-hmm.
And, Curtis extended this generous invite to us and we accepted it. And it was a little bit of a risk on our part because we didn't know exactly what we were going to do. And, we assume he's a good pilot and, and all that sort of stuff. But
that's true. We were just like, well, he has a plane, so it's probably fine.
Oh, man. But I just think when somebody is really good at something and it's their strength and they love it, and then you get to be with them in their area of strength, what a delightful place to be for both people.
Mm-hmm.
Because, they get to share something that brings them joy. They get to share it with somebody that's appreciative. I mean, and this is how I feel about taking people sailing. Like, it doesn't get old for me because I love seeing people just sparkle and delight at what they're getting to experience that they never would have gotten to experience before. There are lots of ways, but this way is what the one that was an entry point for them. So I know that I feel this way with sailing, and it's a great thing with flying, but it can also be with music. It can be with, I love the people that help us prepare our tax returns. They're really good at it, and they are smart, and they get to shine this time of year for me.
Yeah, they know the ins and outs. And I think of that too. And we've mentioned before on this podcast, little hints of trying to buy a business. And we're still going down that road. And my goodness, thank goodness for our business broker. Like, I love it when we get on the phone with him and he's like, well, I have this experience with these different kinds of banks and lenders, and this is how things happen. And I have this spreadsheet and I'll punch in these numbers and then we'll know what percentages on blah, blah, blah. I think, wow, that's so awesome. I'm so thrilled that he has, cultivated this skill set and he really has a mind for putting the puzzle together and he loves to guide us along and get our input, but also give us counsel. And yeah, letting him shine is helping us grow in new ways as well. And so I totally agree. So going back to what you were saying, just linking it to the phrase who, not how, it's that we're finding these people who are doing something that they're really good at and that they really enjoy and that they love to share with others, either as a gift or a service. In some of the cases we pay them, and it just makes it happen so much faster and so much easier because we're not trying to be the expert at everything.
Yeah, so I'm a fan of the who not how, especially in this area. This flight that we're talking about. Also, we had a great call with our business broker this morning, and we're learning a lot from him. And we also have who not how people, like you say, people can do it out of generosity. Sometimes we pay people, and we have a whole episode on this. And so if you're not familiar with this concept, go look up our episode about who not how, and we talk about the book where we got this idea and other examples and ways to do it. But yeah, this was a great example of getting to live it and enjoy the benefits of it.
I like what you say about letting someone else shine, because in this moment, I'm actually thinking about who, not how, as a very humble way to go through life. Whereas DIY can be fun in its own way. Like, I'm going to learn how to do everything and I'm just going to let it take longer and I'm going to not get the, expert results. I'm going to get the amateur results. And it can be fun if you're just trying to explore and learn new skills, but it can also be very self-centered and you're just trying to rely everything on yourself. And if there's a way that you can tap into somebody else's skill set and, like you said, enthusiasm, that can be another kind of fun, and you can move a lot faster that way.
Well, I know that we all have different strengths and gifts and interests. And when we find ways to cross paths and share that in a mutually beneficial way, the world becomes a delightful place. And we got to experience that on this little trip with Curtis. And I look forward to finding more ways of living my life that way.
I love it. Me too. What could go right?
Hey guys, it's Erik. Before we sign off, I just want to give you the sailing update. For those of you that are interested in sailing with us sooner rather than later, we do have a couple of last-minute spots that have opened up. A couple of people have had to shift around. So we're going to be in the British Virgin Islands March 10th through the 15th. This is 2025. And one couple has had to move to another trip, so their loss is your gain. But if you want to come March 10th through the 15th, we do have spots for 2 people, 1 cabin. Also, we're going to be in the Bahamas March 31st through April 5th. We have a couple of cabins open. So if that works for you, we're going to sail in and out of Nassau, sailing the beautiful Exuma Islands. If you want to sail with us a little bit further out on the calendar, June 7th through the 14th, we're going to be in Italy. All these next trips are in Europe, in the Mediterranean. Italy, Naples, beautiful spot, June 7th through the 14th. Greece, sailing out of Athens, July 19th through the 26th. Croatia, a town called Split. We're going to discover it together. I haven't been there before. So August 2nd through the 9th. So you can hop on one of our spring trips to the BVI or the Bahamas, or you can join us in Italy, Greece, or Croatia. Just shoot us an email, hello@theawesomefactory.nyc, or ping us on social media, DM us, and we'd love to hear from you and hopefully welcome you aboard.